Mr. Brickway?
Here.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Here.
Mr. Bob Culbertson?
Here.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Here.
And Mr. Schulmeyer.
Present.
Let the record show 5 members are present, 2 members are absent. Council, what is your pleasure on the approval of the written minutes of the April 27th council meeting? Can I
Mr.
have
President,
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
make a motion we approve of the written minutes of the April 27th council meeting.
I'll second that, Mr. President.
A motion by Mr. Ray Culbertson, seconded by Ms. Hausfeld to approve the written minutes of the April 27th council meeting. Are there any remarks? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. Okay. All right, so we're going to jockey thing. Well, Mayor, would you like to do yours before we get into some of these other things, in case Mr. Hennekamp has to?
Certainly. I guess we'll go ahead and just have, if I'm going to introduce Jim Hennekamp, who from the St. Bernard Ludlow Grove Historical Society is here with us this evening to discuss the plans to mount the tablet from our original City Hall in the front of our current building. Supplied you all with a packet that includes the bids for the project and the scope of the work that would be done. So I'm going to turn this over to Jim, who I would ask to go to the microphone, please, and kind of give us a little bit of background regarding the project. And again, there is a cost to this, so there's a purpose of him being here. So again, I'd like to introduce Jim Hennekamp.
Hi. I've been with the Historical Society just a little over a year now, and one of the first things that came to light was this stone lying in the side planter of City Hall. And I think most of us didn't know what it was, but of course Marge Neeson knew what that was. And she started us on the path, and if you look at the pictures I think that you have, you can see the old City Hall. It was built in 1890, and that stone was installed at the time in that building. It almost looks like it was in a window if you look at it, and I guess we have been calling it the pennant stone because it is shaped like a pennant. So in any event, we have been, believe it or not, going in circles almost for a year trying to figure out the best place to bring this to light. And I will say in the year's time that we have been watching it, it has actually decayed even further. It is actually in quite good shape, believe it or not, but you'll see a little bright white spot down in the lower right-hand corner, and that has flaked off. So part of what we need to do is to remove all the biological growth that's on this stone, patch it, and seal it for the future. So that would be where we started, and we had looked at all kinds of locations, possibly out front of City Hall. But again, it gets kind of crowded out there if you look at that. So we kind of then moved on to a plan maybe of installing it inside, and we did a thorough study of the buildings, and there weren't too many places where this 2,000-pound structure could be mounted. And even then, there was going to be some question about needing structural supports. So in any event, we finally decided on the location you see, which is on the front of City Hall. And it would actually be inset into the brick. They would cut the brick out and install this stone that has been cleaned, patched, and sealed. So that is part of that project, well, the major part of it. And the second thing is the bronze plate that will identify what the town hall used to look like. And basically, that would be, leading people to what it used to look like and what it can now show when they see this building. So I think it's a good addition for a couple of reasons. It preserves an artifact from the past, and I think it also would help the appearance of the front of City Hall. That, of course, would be our opinion. So I guess what we're asking is for your support to do the project. And I don't know, I mean, any questions about it beyond that?
Anyone on council, any questions?
So, Mr. President,
Mayor.
so just based on adding up the couple different options, so with respect to the original portion of the estimate that requires the removal of the tablet, the cleaning, and prepping and sealing and mounting and the mortar and everything else that gets done, the brickwork on the side of the building basically being the $17,200. If we would go with the larger bronze plaque, which would again kind of commemorate the building and talk about the history and all that, with the larger plaque being 54 by 46 with 3-inch text, that would bring the total of the project to $32,179. If you went with the smaller bronze plaque at 36 by 30, that brings the project down to $25,485.
That's
So-
correct. And I think when we kind of tried to picture it on the front of the building, it almost looks less crowded with the smaller plaque, aside from the fact it's a lot cheaper. But again, that would be the preference of the Historical Society at this point, is to use that smaller plaque. Which, to me, the whole thing was shocking how expensive those things are.
Mr. President,
Mr. Brickwig?
so does the plaque, the stone, the old stone that needs to be cleaned and everything, you can't change the size of that.
Right.
So the plaque's got, I'm looking at the pic, the plaque's got to be the size that it mates in there, right?
Well, actually, the plaque itself would be on the surface. That would not be inset in the brick. So you can position that, to make it look centered.
Now I'm talking about like the sides of the old one as it comes down.
Yeah.
Is the smaller one the same size as the width?
No, it's smaller. It would not be the same width.
Oh, smaller one. Yeah. I personally like the look of it mating.
Yeah.
So I would be in favor of spending the extra money myself.
Well, that's something that would need to be decided.
And also, I don't know the shape of the brick on the building. I would like to look into cleaning this building by a professional company before we go putting this on, because if they start do we have a lot of stains coming down? I mean, when's the last time this building's been maintained? You know what I mean? So we're gonna do something like this. I would like to see the building cleaned before we go putting this in. So that,
Well, Tom may have something to say about that, I think.
okay, that's all I have.
President,
Thank you.
We do have samples of, that we're gonna test to see if we can clean it. It's actually, mold, so we're gonna test that.
Mr. President,
Mr. Bob Culbertson?
hey, Tommy, what about the bridge out there? And again, I'm in favor of this project, but I'm just thinking, the Kurtz, the exterior of the building looks kind of rough, the bridge.
Mr. President,
Mr. Paul?
when I got here, I think 2 years after I'd been here, we redid the one on Washington there, and then when I had the front one bid, because it is curved, it like tripled in price. I think we were up to like $35,000 to have it. That's just repaired. So to have it redone, I didn't get an estimate for that, but they said because of the shape and all the railing, it would be quite expensive.
Mr. President,
Mayor.
so if, I'm not asking that we focus just on this, but I think we should talk about that, the bridge as well. I mean, I don't think we're in a situation where we need to, put it off. I mean, you can see the deterioration. I think that whether or not have someone come out and assess it and determine whether or not we're talking replacement or if, again, we can do another patch job. But it's not one where you're sitting there and just, mixing up some patch and making it cosmetically look better. So I think we should probably have someone come out and look as well. But at the same time, that particular issue wouldn't prevent us from doing this. So I guess the initially for this, if for this evening, if we could ask for, again, we'd be this evening we have some other additional appropriations we'll be asking for, whether or not this could be put in with that as well, and whether or not it's the decision of council to go with the larger bronze plaque versus the smaller. Then again, we would be asking, for an additional appropriation of the $32,179 to complete the project as bid. And then we will get somebody to come out and look at the ramp.
Mr. President,
Brickwig?
when the mayor came in and told me the price, I'll admit I was shocked. But that same day, we got a surprise check in the mail for a little over $17,000 for a lawsuit that apparently we were part of, or the whole community was, from Monsanto. So I said, I don't know if that was meant to make this work, but I thought it was really, I said, you know, you're more than welcome to use some of that money, but we did get an extra 17,000 that was not in the budget, and none of us had any idea it was coming, if that helps you make your decision.
I think that's a sign that Marge Neeson should get her project taken care of.
Yeah.
And just for my 2 cents worth, which doesn't amount to anything but 2 cents, I kind of like the smaller plaque because I think it sets off, at least in these pictures, I think it brings your attention more to the bigger plaque, but that's just my 2
Yeah,
cents.
and if you probably can't quite notice it, but actually what would have to be done is to remove the St. Bernard City Hall lettering and move it up, if that's, you know, the preference. So, again, as we make everything bigger, it gets a little tighter looking, I think.
It just kind of sets it off more where it brings your attention to it. So. Mhm.
I agree with you guys. I like the smaller one better, the layout of it.
Yeah, Mr. President, I would agree also. I think it might, for a stone that is that old, it might be hard to marry those up and make them look good too. So, you know, probably be better to do small ones.
Strike my idea.
We'll amend
It's good
that.
while it lasted.
So, Mr. President, with that being said, I guess it would come in a later portion of the meeting that we would be asking for, you know, an additional appropriation in the amount of, then, if the idea is to go with the smaller plaque of $25,485 to actually to follow through with this project.
We'll just, might as well do this now and just add it to later. So is there a motion to place this as part of the appropriation ordinance on the table then for next council meeting? Have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
A motion by Mr. Ray Culbertson, seconded by Ms. Housefeld, to approve the Historical Society's request to place the old on the new city hall. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. It is approved. Okay. Anything else? And if you want to take part of the top part as part of your report too, the raises. Either way, we'll get to it. So go ahead, you might as well just go ahead and finish your report and then we'll go back to the other.
All right, that's fine. So last evening, Chris Schulmeyer and I met with former Mayor John Estep to discuss some concerns regarding some issues in the village, specifically high grass, placement of trash at the curb on non-trash days, and of course, placement of trash at times it's not permitted. And the idea of sending out a flyer reminding people of our trash days, holidays, citing specific ordinances on the placement of trash at the curb, ordinances regarding tall grass, litter, and important village dates for events and activities that are held during seasonal times. Obviously, not all of this can be accomplished through a call command or the newsletter specifically. So a printed flyer will be produced mid-year to send that out, trying to remind folks of that, those individuals, especially since we've had a fairly large turnover in residents, and they may not even be, you know, on our call command, which with that message probably would time out. So anyhow, we are going to print something up to get sent out and utilize that. Also, as you may be aware, this Tuesday evening, an employee of Pizza Hut got into an altercation with an individual and was shot during the scuffle. The police department is actively working on the case, and our prayers are with the employee who was injured, and I will be keeping you all updated as this progresses. Also, I recently met with a group of citizens who are involved with one of the local Facebook pages, and I have to say it was a positive meeting. They wanted to know how they could help with hosting more events, and we were able to give them updates on what was already in the works starting this month. Just to give you a brief overview of events, of course, starting with this Sunday, May 21st, our first Fresh Market, May 29th, the Memorial Day service, June 2nd, concert in the Pavilion, June 16th, we have a family night at the pool, June 30th, movie night at the Pavilion, July 4th, we have a 4th of July celebration and laser light show, July 28th, adult night at the pool, August 4th and 5th, we have the German Luau and Fresh Market, August 11th, we have another concert in the Pavilion, August 25th, we have another movie night in the Pavilion, September 29th, another concert, and of course, going into the fall, October 13th through the 15th, the Halloween camp out, And of course, we have another final event for the year on December 2nd, Light Up St. Bernard, and another holiday market. So there's a lot going to be happening again over the course of the rest of the year. So again, I appreciate working with them, and we'll look forward to, further discussions with them as they would like to volunteer and get more involved. Also today, Cameron Young was sworn in as a firefighter EMT with the St. Bernard Fire Department. So again, congratulations to Cameron. Also related to the fire department, I am going to be bringing back the position of, it was previously known, of course, fire inspector, but it would be retitled as fire marshal. They will concentrate on the inspections with our industrial, commercial, and residential dwellings. With this, this individual will also be working on our rental program, which I'm looking to bring back. We're having the fire marshal do this. We'll be doing the inspections and have this approached as more of a life safety issue. If referrals need to be made to HIP or to the health department, or if the individual needs, special assistance, this could be handled in a more compassionate manner. So we will be this evening, as the auditor will touch on additional appropriations, we will be asking for that to add another employee at the fire department. Lastly, we'll be having our annual Memorial Day Parade in the lower level of the City Hall parking lot area to honor those who've made the ultimate sacrifice, starting at 10 a.m. on Monday, May 29th. Ceremony. Did I say parade? Actually, that was going to be part of this. I apologize. So we will be doing the ceremony. The group that I met with also asked about having a parade, and I did discuss with them the possibility for next year looking at maybe doing a memorial march, not referring to it as just a candy throwing parade, but that could be dealt with for next year. So again, I apologize for saying the parade would be back this year, is our ceremony. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, now we'll kick back to the new and referred items. So next thing on the agenda then is the discussion of raises, obviously with the election. As I brought up earlier in the year, so I'm bringing it up again. It's been since 2006 or 2008 since council, or I don't remember. I don't know about the other positions, law director, mayor, everybody else, but just throwing it out there because if it is going to be done this year, if it's not, then it'll be 16 years since any raises have been given. But it has to be done before petitions are filed, so I'm just throwing it open for discussion, what people's thoughts are about increases for those positions.
Mr. President,
Mr. Ray Culbertson.
like I said a few weeks ago when this came up, I will support this, but I just want to figure out how we want to go about it. If we want to just throw a percentage out there right now and then come back later, or do we want to somehow talk? I know Kurt mentioned tying it into whether it's the chiefs or who, tying it into some other position so that we don't have to keep coming up asking for it, or future council members don't have to keep coming up asking for it. I don't know where it went from there, what anybody's thoughts are, or you just want it to be just a blanket 2-3% increase.
Mr. President,
Ms. Brickway.
the one thing I will suggest is we took it away for a reason, so I would not throw that back in there again. The reason you took it away, or council took it away, is because Hamilton County wasn't getting raises. They took it away so they could get a raise. So I'd rather not even get involved with that. But the only other thing I want to add in is you forgot the tax administrator in this.
My apologies. I went off of the positions that were on the election stuff and was not sliding. I understand that. Like I say, I'm just, it'll be 16 years if nothing gets done now. And like I say, I don't think that we can tie it to other councils. That's what I've always been told. You can't pass something now that's gonna, even if we were to do raises again in 10 years or something, I don't know that we could do that. But anyway, it's been, as I say, since 2008, so.
Mr. President,
Leanne.
can you look into maybe some other cities that are comparable to get an idea of what their scale is and maybe kind of compare it?
I tried to do that, and the only, you're not gonna like the numbers, but there were two that I found that I could access. Everybody else I couldn't find. Evendale, their council people make $13,500, and they have 2 meetings a month. So they make double what we make. The city of Mason was the other one I found. Their council people make $800, they have one meeting a month. Their council people make $800 a month or $9,600 a year. President of council makes $1,000 a meeting or $12,000 a year. And their mayor makes $1,200 a meeting or $14,400 a year. And that's just for one meeting.
Mr.
That was in
President,
the newspaper not too long ago.
there's a bunch of them, and there's a lot more. Those are probably the highest on that whole board.
I'm not saying they're
You-
not, but
But you could do that. You go to the Center of Local Government and look it up.
see, I went and looked, and because somebody else had directed me there, and
Yeah.
I actually plug for ICRC-TV, but I go there, and you can find ours through our ordinance, but I went to other little villages and.
You probably have to have
couldn't
a
find
sign
thing.
on, like I can sign on to it.
Well, that's what I mean,
Yeah.
I could not find
Yeah.
access, so,
The one thing I would suggest, if council really, they want to raise, I would suggest 3.5%, because that's pretty much what you gave most of the other employees over the last 10 or 12.
and let's remember, this isn't raises for us.
No, I know,
This is
I
for
know,
the new
I know.
people
But
that'll be
I'm
elected in
saying,
November.
I
know,
would think that that's pretty much been the average. Now, I can say for the city hall, and I've expressed this, that they seem to get overlooked all the time, the full-time employees, but, I can say in, the service director's position, it hasn't had a raise in 8 years. In the auditor position, I've been in there 12, and I've had 2% raise, and that was 8 years ago. Same thing with the tax administrator. I'm trying to look. We did bump up the, our assistant, but she only has 3 steps, and she's gonna be done, so that would need some, that's what I would suggest, since you get in this issue. If a position is like a 4-year position, maybe do steps, and then you don't have to worry about, you're not gonna get anything, or just give them a one lump sum and then go 4 years later. But I think I hit every one of, because you already hit, all the council ones, but that's when most of the city hall, now, the clerk, Heidi, she's been getting her she's been getting raises, and the, mayor secretary, she topped out at her top step this year, so she doesn't have any.
And that's what I mean, I don't think the council needs a raise every 4 years.
Yeah, and that's
But, as I say, it's been 14, and nobody likes to bring it up, so,
Mr. President.
yes. Ms. Brown.
If, Peggy, if you have access to that website, I think the best thing to do, instead of just throwing out a percentage and saying 3.5%, is to benchmark it and see what other similar communities, and not sit there and look at, okay, Cincinnati council makes this, because we're not Cincinnati, but if we look at comparable villages that has the same, revenue stream, and then that way, we're just not saying, oh, it should be 3% or it's 4%, or, if it's been 16 years, or whatever Steve said, to say 3.5%, I don't know if, I don't even know what's our salary is right now, but, just so everybody can say, okay, where are we at in the range? And we did this, I think, with the police and the fire, and said, hey, we were way under the range. So the other thing that we need to look at, too, that I was just thinking is, we just passed the ordinance, and I think, or not the ordinance, the amendment, and I think December 1st is when the new council comes on. So what's going to happen, I guess, in December? Because I think on our paperwork it says it expires December 31st.
Ms.
I didn't know if they were going to have like 2, everybody get, or one council leaves on the third, or the 1st.
Mr. President, I can
Ms.
answer
Brickley.
a bunch of times. I can do that for you. I don't think you're going to want it, because the ones he read, like I said, are most of the highest. Most of the other councils are like $2,000 and $3,000 a year. So we've always been a little higher. We're up there. Reading was about $1,000 more than us a year for council. It was Reading and one other one, but everybody else, all the other municipalities were lower. I just glanced at it. When it comes to the December, the charter amendment trumps anything you had on because that's our new law. So if you don't run, if you lose, your last pay would be the November pay, and then everybody else starts in December. I'm sorry. Yeah, but that's why I'm saying, you know, I think the 3.5%, I think it'll put you you'll put you at least closer to the top one, and that's why I said maybe that's a good one.
The and this is not exact, but at 3.5%, council will go from roughly 6,653 to like $7,000. You're talking like $400 increase. A 3.5% will do that roughly for all the positions, so. That's
President.
what I was thinking. Yes, Mr. Schultz.
So, Peggy, I would love that information, honestly, because I'm not looking for higher or lower, I just want like a real benchmark. And the decision might be zero if we find out that we're actually already higher than the median, right? I'd love that information, though, to make
And
a
Mr.
decision
President,
like that.
I can work on it, but it's a huge spreadsheet, and you guys all have access to it. All you have to do is sign on and set up an account. But I'll work on it, but it's like all of Cincinnati. So,
Yeah,
and it's listed, and this is why I'm saying you're probably better off going on and looking at it, because, and I'm trying to think how, like, it'll say clerk 1, clerk 2, clerk 3, auditor 1, I mean, it spreads everybody out, so it's really hard to compare, and so you got to keep cutting and pasting and doing things like that. But I'll do my best to get something together, but if you really want to understand it or know what's out there, I would suggest signing on and just setting up an account and a password, and then you can see it all, and you can sort it however you want. Right. Center of local government. Yeah. Yeah, you should be able to, yeah, that's how I did it, but I would assume you still can. If not, let me know, and I can, yeah. We belong to that. About $4,000 a year, we belong to that for a long time. And there's a lot of good data out there on that spreadsheet, or on that sheet.
Mr. President?
Mayor.
So, aside from that, as far as the timing, I just need to double check as to when we have to have this decided, whether it is before the petitions are turned in, and how does that affect, the other, appointed positions or hired positions that we have, that are functioning here in City Hall. As far as, things like with respect to the tax administrator and other things, even whether it be the auditor, whether or not an evaluation needs to be done as far as to market rate and what would be acceptable, because they have not had increases in years. I mean, just as long as, we've kind of fallen behind. The other thing that I'd like to do, and again, this is no disrespect to Mr. Paul, but the safety service director position, knowing that, obviously the outcome of, the charter amendments, with respect to that position, it probably needs a bit of an overhaul in taking on, some additional responsibility from a skill set that we've never, ever reached outside of the village for. So with respect to that position itself, trying to earmark a specific amount would be difficult. So whether or not we would be able to have a range, so that, again, if we start looking, and my intent would be to, if I was obviously in the position of hiring that individual, would be, have a committee that'd work with council members and some other individuals that would assist in that search. But the point being is that we may not be able to sit there and say that it's going to be $80,000. I think we need to look at the idea that we may have an acceptable range, so that if we're seeking, a particular talent base, that we're able to actually bring that person in without having our hands tied. So I guess, with that being said, how this would be written, whether you have a starting point to between, 80 and 120 or $130,000, so that, again, depending on what we're looking for and based on experience, that we would have the ability to make that higher. So I was looking at the idea of how does that affect the appointed positions relative to the elected, and whether anyone has an answer on that.
You want me to answer? Basically, you have, no salary can be changed after someone hands in their petitions. Once the petitions are handed in, that's the lock-in salary. So I think they're due sometime in August, so you would have to at least do that before. I'm just trying to think out loud.
November 7th is election, so it'd be 90 days
Yeah,
prior to that.
so whatever that is.
Which is why I said in January I'd bring it back up in May, because we
Yeah.
would have to do it.
Mr. President, not to cut the auditor off, but as far as the appoint, so more specifically, the appointed positions, the timing on having the established compensation rate for the appointed / hired employees, or however it would be worded. So like the tax administrator, the safety service director, those kind of things.
I'm sorry. I'm not sure on the appointed. I would say if you can do them before the August, I think we'd be okay. That's always been what the goal was before petitions are due. I think if you did it before then. What I was gonna add for the range, I'm sorry, what? Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I was just thinking that if, the appointed positions would be tied to the ordinances. So when whatever your ordinance says is what you're going to be tied to. It's not, whenever you appoint them, whatever the ordinance in place at that time says is what you're going to have to do, so.
Mr. President, correct.
Mayor.
So, but we've had specific ordinances, pay ordinances that basically are jumbled with elected and basically the appointed. So I get that. So point being is that at this time, I want to make sure that we're not tying our hands, is all I'm getting at, is if we're looking at pay ordinances and we're looking at possible change, and also the fact that if we're looking at the retention of individuals that are actually already performing, vital tasks within City Hall and doing it well, we need to look at, proper compensation, for them as well. So I want to address that
And I'm not-
either way.
I'm not sure about the appointments, because obviously they don't file. They're your appointments, so that's gonna be a legal question. That I can't answer. I just know that the other
It's-
positions have to be done before the filing date on the petitions.
Mr. President, it's still the same thing. It's August. So, but it is an ordinance, but that ordinance has to be passed before all the petitions are in. So that's what I'm saying, just shoot for the August, because that is what it is. But on your idea of the range, I don't think there's an issue with that, especially if you're gonna have like council people working with you on that, and then if you pick somebody, because there's not gonna be a range in the budget, so when we make the budget, that number would be in there, so you all have a say in the number, but at least helps the mayor or in that committee to go out and find somebody based on, what the needs are. So I think a range is probably a good idea. But you do, and I know how you worry about the control, but you would still have control, because the actual number has to go into the budget.
Mr. President.
Here.
Well, good thing I'm involved in the budget, so that works out fine. So I guess you answered my question just a minute ago as well, so you can strike me from the list. So since my petition's already in, I don't need a raise, obviously, so.
It's that, and it's not the filing date.
Mr. President, I can guarantee it, because when I ran for auditor the first time, that council decided to try to cut my pay. And so the lawyer had to we got a legal opinion. It's I had already handed in them when they decided that they were gonna try to cut my pay, being the new auditor. Yeah.
So I guess my question is, what's council's pleasure? We gonna do anything for the next council meeting to put something on the table, or we're gonna wait, or,
Mr. President,
Mr. Bob Culbertson?
I'm fine with putting something on the table and then coming back, I guess, at that time, we could always amend the percentage and just put a placeholder in there. I don't know what everybody else thinks, but, if it comes out that, we're way overcompensated, then we could just zero it out. If it comes out we're way undercompensated, you could move it up to 10%, but we could just put a placeholder for, 3 or 3.5 or whatever it may
And
be.
Mr. President, I
And
will
do it
work
for
on
everybody,
getting,
not just
I will work
council.
on trying to get you some information, but I'm just saying, if you wanna go into really good details, but I'll work on that tomorrow.
Mr. President,
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
to get it moving, to prevent if somebody turns their petitions in and this is all null and void, I'm fine with putting what we gave to the other employees, 3.5, whatever that percentage was, that Peggy mentioned earlier. I think that's the fair point
So-
to go with.
would that be for president of council, council, and clerk of council, I assume?
I would also like for it to include auditor, treasurer, tax administrator. I don't,
I would,
is that, am I missing something, or is?
yeah, I'll be honest, yeah, those are full-time jobs. I think somebody in the administration should probably look at them
Okay.
and see what, you know, that is.
That's fine, I'm just worried again about
and I
somebody
w-
beating us to the
I don't
punch.
I think now that, I mean, let's be honest, I think everybody, now that they heard it, I doubt they're gonna hand in their petitions till this is voted on. Yeah, there's no way nobody will, but, sorry. I'll be honest. I mean, you could do 3.5, but I think with a full-time job, I think you should have, like he said, reviews and things like that. I mean, we do it with all the other full-time employees, a review. So I would probably leave that up to the mayor, you know, that runs City Hall on those positions. But on the and that's why I kind of picked out the part-time ones for now, and he can decide. I mean, maybe after a review, he decides that, you know,
Mr. President,
we don't get one.
Mr. Brickway.
one last thing I heard somebody say, Reading. Reading is a very good comparable to our community. Last I knew, a firefighter I work with left our fire department and went to Reading for better pay. So that's a good benchmark right there. That's all I wanted to add.
So I guess the question is there a motion to put an ordinance on the table for the 3.5%? And as Mr. Culbertson said, it can be amended, it can be tabled, it can be whatever council wants to do, but to start the process.
I get, Mr. President,
Ms. Housefeld.
who exactly, I know you just named some of them, who exactly are we going to put this percentage tied to? So it's spelled out.
All right, Mr. President, wouldn't it be tied to any other community? It would be.
No, I'm talking.
Oh, that's what I was asking. I said president of council, council, and clerk of council. Did I get them?
Mr. President,
Mr. Bob Culbertson.
I'll make a motion that we put an ordinance in place for a 3.5% raise for the president of council, council, clerk of council. I think that's it. Oh, the treasurer, sorry.
No, I think, yeah,
You already did. Oh, you can do it for 2 more years.
For
Yeah,
2
you're right,
years.
you're right.
Yeah, I'll say the treasurer
So
too.
we'll do the treasurer starting in whenever that is. He's
20.
right, yeah.
Unless you turn yours in.
I'll second that motion, Mr. President.
All right, a motion by Mr. Bob Culbertson, second by Mr. Brickway to place an ordinance on the table for a 3.5% increase for president, council, council, clerk of council, and treasurer. Obviously, the treasurer would not take effect for 2 more years when the current treasurer's term expires. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. All right, next on the agenda, did anyone get a chance to look at the rules of council, or should we push that back to the next committee of the whole? There's nothing really that's earth-shattering that needs to be done tonight, but if anybody had looked at them and is okay talking about them tonight, we can do it tonight, or I can just push it to the next committee of the whole.
Mr. President,
Mr. Bob Culbertson.
I'll make a motion that we just recommendation, I guess not a motion, that we just push it back until the other 2 members are here to
Okay.
discuss.
I'll second that.
All right, no need for a motion, we'll just move that to the next committee of the whole. The other item on the new and referred items is Heidi had sent out an email to everyone about a codified ordinance update. And she gave a very good explanation of, Mr. DeBerke had asked on the last one that there was really nothing in the one section. She gave a very good explanation. If anyone hasn't looked at their email, please do so. But do I have a motion to place a codified ordinance on the table?
Mr. President,
Mr. Ray Culbertson.
I'll make a motion that we put the codified ordinance is on the table for the next council meeting.
I'll second that, Mr. President.
Motion by Mr. Ray Culbertson, second by Ms. Housefeld to place codified ordinance ordinance on the table. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. All right. So then we will move to auditor, Ms. Brickway.
Thank you, Mr. President. The April revenue was $5,481,950.50. The expenditures for April were $4,215,233.75, which brings us to $1,266,716.75 over the expenditures. And so please bear with me and allow Mr. Paul and Mayor Stuchel to interrupt me and help me with this, and the tax commissioner, because there's a lot of different appropriations that everybody's been coming to this week, so I'm going to try to lead it. So we'll start with, well, we have the Historical Society. The next one is refunds to E3. Leanne has asked for an additional $200,000 in refunds because we are getting bigger refunds, and she thinks that's more than enough, and it should get us to the end of the year instead of keep coming back and asking. But if you have any questions, you can ask Leanne. Okay. Next, bear with me. Swim team. And that item is in the Recreation Department, 58-4B. They're asking for an additional appropriation for $12,000 because we have the swim championship. And so the mayor and Paul Schulmeyer and Iris all met together, and I had given them the expenses from back in 2012, and this is the number that looked like, because we have to supply so many different things for it. So they were asking for the $12,000 additional appropriation for that. Any questions? Sorry.
And Mr. President, so
Okay.
just the hosting municipality, I mean, all of the onus is on them for basically for providing all the hospitality, everything that has to be done. I mean, it's a pretty large scale event, and it just happens to be our turn. So those expenses would be above and beyond what would normally be incurred by the Recreation Department and the pool. So there's really no way around it.
It's actually a good way to highlight the village, too.
That would be July, what?
It's like the second week,
Second week.
So yeah, it's like
Monday and Tuesday in
14th,
July.
was it 14th, 15th, right? And so, yes, that's going to be a major event, and there's, yeah, I mean, as far as parking, yes, big.
And some of these other ones are kind of added on to that. So the next one was community events, 01589. I don't have I can't remember what the number we came up with that one. You can
So
explain that.
there were two different things that we need. We're asking for, you know, a dozen folding pub tables, lifetime pub tables that we use at our events for like the Fresh Market, be able to use them at the luau, be able to use them at the Christmas events and things that we don't have. We don't have that, and it's not worth renting. So basically, they're roughly $65 a piece, and I think it's a good purchase. We need them. We don't have anything like it. The other thing that we are wanting is that it's not safe in the winter months. So when we have events like the Bengal tailgate down at the pavilion or anything down at the park, you know, rather than having open burn barrels, things like that, we would like to actually, you know, for our holiday events and other things, like to actually have the propane heaters that we can use, which are much safer, not having as much of an issue. So, and those are roughly $325 a piece, and we were looking at getting 8 of those if possible.
So that would go into 58.9. Okay. Then the next one is swimming pool equipment outlay, and this is where it goes into the swim finals, because some of our, do you want to take this one too? Benches, chairs.
So yes, we're still dealing with, you know, since the new pool, I should say, at least in my mind, but the newer aquatic center, we're dealing with original equipment, and then we've definitely gotten to the point where there's been, you know, some deterioration. So there's equipment that needs to be replaced, tables, you know, benches. Some of the individuals that attend, you know, the pool regularly have asked for, because we have plenty of lounge chairs. So if I believe Ms. Hausfeld can maybe back me up with this, there was a request to purchase some additional upright chairs so that we can actually accommodate those that would be attending, our facility. So we'd like to, an additional purchase there. And again, we need to replace equipment, it's not just adding to, but we're at that point, as you can tell, since we just had to make a major expenditure in the replacement of the interior fence and railing and things like that. We're just at that point. So,
How much was that? Was it 10?
we were, I
10 or
believe,
12?
we were at 12.
12, okay.
Mr. President,
Mr. Brickwick?
are the umbrellas in good shape down there?
Mr. President, so,
Mayor.
and not to cut off the service director, safety service director, but yes, so we replaced those and they finally came in. They were just back ordered. The only thing that hasn't been done on, as far as canopy coverage, which is going to be done shortly, is the canopy for the top of the slide. But everything else was done.
And then, also part of that equipment maintenance, the pickleball.
Oh, sorry, Mr. President.
It's okay.
Mayor?
So we are going to be ordering, once we get the, asphalt fiasco figured out with the pavilions, which is kind of in works, it's going to be a little while before the final surface is put down. But point being is that when we have the actual permanent pickleball court set up, it would still be able to be removed. So we're not having anything that's permanently anchored, to the actual pavilion floor. But we want to have a substantial enough piece of equipment that, it can't be knocked over. And the actual units themselves are roughly, they're $2,400 a piece, and they're back ordered right now for several months. But we would like to have a substantial enough piece of equipment so that this, even though they can be moved, they're literally just as substantial as what you see at a tennis court. I mean, I'm not saying you lay on it, but the point is that it's something that at least that we're not going to have something set up that's so shoddy that it's going to fall over and injure anybody. This is substantial enough. But again, we would need, $4,800 for those two nets.
And then, the other line item that the mayor will assist me with is 05 MP10A demolition.
Mr. President.
Mayor?
Sorry. It was probably more involved for me to do that in my report. So, so we are actually received notification that we have satisfied all necessary legal notifications to the property owner on Greenlee for the house that was damaged by a fire. We have also, put out notification to the specific lien holders that we are going to demo. Have not heard anything back. We are now actively seeking bids for the demolition. So at this point, to actually be able to expedite the process, I would like to be able to go ahead and have funds appropriated. Whether or not we exceed that or come under, I'd like to be able to act on it immediately. I want the house down because it's more of a safety issue. But what the issue is that there has to be a contingency that's built in. So the reason that I'm going to ask for $50,000, I don't believe that it will be the case. But the contingency that's built in is if they go in and there has to be any asbestos remediation, it can almost be as costly as the demo itself. But I don't believe that it's going to be that high. I mean, if you want to say 40, whatever, but I mean, we're going to have every bit of $25,000 in a demolition. We're also going to be, again, you're talking about making sure that we're going with, an individual that is also a reputable company, everything that's, bonded and insured, because you're talking about taking down a home that sits between two existing structures. So it's not just as easy as taking a bulldozer and pushing it over. So we want to make sure that it's done properly, but again, at the same time, our obligation to remediate any asbestos if indeed it is found. So, I mean, I'm asking for, $40,000 or $50,000. Again, not saying that that's what we're going to spend, but in the meantime, I will be able to proceed if we get the bids back, by next week, we can move forward and get this done without having to wait. No, I don't even want to wait a month. Exactly. I want to get on the list.
Yeah. Let's
Mr.
go.
President,
Mr. Bob Culbertson.
So on that, Jonathan, we would take over the control of the property. It wouldn't be something where we would demo and then whoever the lien holder is would come back and have a claim to that property. And I'm assuming this would include taking the basement out, so when we hopefully go to redevelop that property, we don't run into an issue like we have with other
Mr.
properties.
Mr. President.
Mayor.
Okay, so that is not totally correct. So the situation is that the village is stepping in and taking over the obligation of demoing the compromised structure as a safety issue. With us doing that, we would then become a lien holder on the property. We would not own it. So we would take a lien position, the largest lien position, so the property itself, whoever would want to develop it would have to, fulfill those obligations. The other liens are, when I say minor, I mean, we're talking, a couple grand, here and there, but still, they wanted it recovered. So, but we would be in a position where also, there is a potential that we could end up buying the property. And when I say buying the property, again, property taxes are in arrears. I mean, we could end up, when it goes for foreclosure, but still, we would be in a lien position. But at this point, there's no other way around it by the fact that the individual was not insured. This is a safety issue. I believe it is our obligation to take it down. But it does not give us control of the property other than putting us in the primary lien holder position.
Mr. President?
Mr.
So
Schulmeyer.
Jonathan, does that mean that in order for that person to sell that property, they would have to pay us the amount we spend?
That is correct. I'm sorry, Mr. President. That is correct. But the entire structure of how this is set up could change with respect to, the foreclosure, depending on how that would happen. But, our goal would be to try to work with the Port Authority and look at the potential even of getting it, because again, the whole idea originally, what would have been great is that if we could have, and it was hoped that we could have found an individual that would have been interested and potentially help broker a deal where they would have bought the property, taken it down, and then it could have actually turned into something, immediate where someone could build on it. Unfortunately, it's just going to probably sit idle for some time. But at this point, we cannot let it sit as it is right now.
Any thoughts from council? 40,000, 50,000? Is there a number that Peggy needs a number, I'm sure.
Mr. President,
Mr. Bob Culbertson.
I'm fine with 50,000. I mean, yeah.
Let's get it down.
Everybody good with that?
You
on?
gotta make a
Okay.
motion.
Well, you already made the motion for us to
Yeah.
do an appropriation ordinance, so
Okay.
I'll put all these in there. One thing I wanted to add to that, because I was talking to an individual today who thought, that we've been ignoring this property. And I'm like, feel free to do a public request on the amount of bills that we have paid, with legal fees. Jonathan has not ignored this at all. He's been working on this since in the very beginning. It's just sometimes this is the way it goes. But I don't want any more rumors to be out there like we've all been ignoring this. When we have not, and I'd be more than happy to show the invoices that I've paid to prove that. But I want to thank him for sticking with this and getting it done, even though it took a long time. Thank you.
Mr. President, just a quick
Right.
follow-up, just so you're aware. I mean, the existing property owner, regardless of whether being in the arrears on property taxes, still has way more rights than what you would believe. And we did not want to be in a position, obviously, of building that person a new house. So, I mean, we exhausted everything that we needed to as far as our requirements for notifications and serving the individual. So we are in a position now, finally, and I know it was painful, and I apologize to the community and everyone for having to look at this. But again, we had to fulfill our obligations, but we're finally there.
Sounds good. All right.
Oh.
This time, is there a,
Mr.
Go ahead,
President, Mr. President,
Mayor.
one more request, just knocking them out tonight.
Sorry, and I actually, it is tagged and I missed it.
So, yes, go ahead.
70,000 into 7A1 for fire marshal inspector that Jonathan was talking about.
Mr. President, so to give a brief explanation, it has become, an area of importance. Obviously, we've had, and I don't disagree that our, captains in the fire department, yes, they should be involved in commercial inspections and whatnot, but we still need a dedicated individual that is handling follow-up for both our commercial structures and our industrial structures, but yet at the same time, I would like to have a focus on our, I don't want to say ever-growing, but large rental percentage that we have in the village. There was always talk about having, whether we would bring back, the rental inspector or a rental program. I do believe that that is necessary, actually, and with the discussion that we've previously had regarding short-term rentals, we can't obviously discriminate just solely on the short-term rentals, so if we're doing the inspections, it'd be across the board. But what I would like to do is focus on this, instead of saying it be in the building department, that we make this a life safety issue, and so that we actually have someone from the fire department that would be doing the internal inspections on the properties. The fire marshal would then, if there's a necessary referral that would need to be made to HIP or the health department, or again, if we need to put ourselves in a more compassionate situation where the individual needs more specialized assistance, I think we can do that. And I don't think there's anyone better suited than a firefighter to take that level of sensitivity or what might be needed. But again, I think it is necessary for us to actually get inside and inspect these homes. So I am going to be asking for some review with laws, contracts, and claims to be able to talk about the actual rental program itself. But aside from that, I still need to bring the person in. It does not mean that there isn't plenty for them to do on, other inspections that aren't related to just rental properties. But that, I do believe that this would be a worthwhile expansion. We still are not, we are fortunate enough that we've still had the willingness of our department still with, not being at 100% full capacity. So with the ASK program, it's worked out well. But I do think this is a vital need. So I am asking, for the $70,000 to make this additional hire. It's going to actually be an internal promotion with a new hire.
Mr. President,
Ms. Housefeld.
not saying I'm against that at all. I'm just looking at a bigger picture so it doesn't prevent somebody else from voting no on the whole appropriation thing. Can that be a separate ordinance versus all the other ordinances, or all the other appropriations? Does that make sense?
I mean, it can, if that's council, I
don't care one way or the other.
well, I'll just ask right now.
There are a couple council
I mean-
members that are not here.
Okay,
and I
so
just
that-
don't want it
okay.
to be an issue with
Or-
anybody.
Right, is the rest of council okay with it, keeping it in one or not? Yeah. Okay. Okay, yeah, so, because
I just thought
I
just in
hate to
case
say
there
this,
was an
each one we
issue.
do, it costs us more money with Walter Drain and all that, so I
Okay.
thought if it's not an issue, but if it is, I would have done it and spent the money. Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
I
okay,
didn't
I
wanna-
understand.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
Mr. President, I just didn't want it to be an issue with any council members that are not here.
With that, I'll entertain a motion to place the large additional appropriation ordinance on the table for next meeting.
Mr. President,
Mr. Ray Culbertson.
I make a motion that we put an ordinance on the table for additional appropriations.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mr. Ray Culbertson, seconded by Mr. Bob Culbertson to place the additional appropriation ordinance on the table. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. Will be on
And
the
Mr.
table.
President,
Mayor.
one final comment, if this makes anyone feel any better. I did have an over $500,000 buffer from when we did the budget, so, we didn't budget everything that was estimated to bring in, so, and then this doesn't also put us over that either, but again, we did have some wiggle room, if that makes anyone feel any better, just so you're aware.
All right, thank you. We'll move to Law Director, Ms. Van Valkenburg.
Thank you. I had planned to ask for, that we get a local contracts and claims committee meeting scheduled for next month. But Cindy's not here, so I will coordinate with her and see what we can do so we can address the short-term rental issue and some other issues. that concludes my official report. I do want to say that I looked at the new park that has been redone on Greenlee. I looked at that yesterday. It is very nice, and there were several families down there that were enjoying that. So, Mr. Paul, congratulations. They've done a really good job. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. I will ask, because I don't know who brought it up or if anyone is still going to bring it up, but in our boxes, we had a resolution number 2 for approving the update to the solid waste. Is that part of you, Mr. Paul? My bad. Okay. I'll shut up now. Treasurer, Mr. Ungrue.
Thank you, Mr. President. This evening I received the first state bank statement, and our total there at the end of April was $5,680.66, and that concludes my report.
Thank you. Safety and Service Director, Mr. Paul.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm glad Jonathan mentioned wiggle room. So line item 8A2 Safety Center, I'm asking for $12,000 for that. We have the shooting range that needs to be decontaminated. 2 overhead doors had broken, and the elevator had to be repaired, along with the roof. So that puts us just a little shy, but I'm hoping that $12,000 will carry us through the rest of the year. We're in an in-depth study for cameras, outside cameras on the streets, and these will line the entire street of Vine Street. It will shoot up Ross Avenue. It will shoot up Ross from east to west, up Chalet to stop the cars there, down Greenlee. These will be, the majority of them will be able to read license plates, and it will encompass the entire street of Vine Street, in and out. So these, I haven't got both bids yet, or all 3 bids yet. So I did talk to another guy who is interested and is going to give us a bid. I asked him here for council chambers. Since we're remodeling, we are going to upgrade this because Peggy knows by myself, I went and had to get the new system and scour the internet, and all I could find was used because they don't sell it anymore. So, and that was more than likely the last one ever. So I asked them to look at this, and they have designed it. Both companies that I had come in designed it, and then this third guy came in and he had great ideas. So that being said, I just wanted you to be aware of that, so we will be coming for that appropriation also. But at this time, after what has happened and what occurs here in the village, I just went out and said that we have to do this, and Mike, the chief, helped, the mayor helped. We had a couple meetings so far, and I just think that now's the time, just the way things are going. Thank you, Valerie, for the parks. They're not all functional yet, so, but they will be. Trash cans. Heidi's not calling the people on the list until we're absolutely positive, but they're supposed to be here Monday morning. Woohoo! That concludes my report.
No, it doesn't.
Mr. President, I would like to ask to have resolution number 2. It is for the solid waste management plan of Hamilton County. We do this periodically. It's due to be put on our table. So, thank you. That concludes my report.
Mr. President.
Mayor.
So if I could follow up on just a couple things. One, the internal cameras and what we're talking about doing here, there will not be an additional appropriation. We actually, and again, not trying to correct Mr. Paul, but I budgeted for this as far as the capital improvements for the renovation of the 2 halls, along with what we're doing at the pavilion. So we won't be asking for anything there, but we will be asking for this much needed investment for the cameras. I can basically kind of tell you and I will say this based on the fact that when we've had incidents, and actually I respond to most everything, and, you know, being there in the middle of the night and you've got the police trying to search and go to multiple locations asking for their footage and all that, when if we could have what we need on our already owned cameras, and if we could actually have situations where we would become part of a potential network of cameras throughout other municipalities, or ones that would be tied to RCIC, so that we could actually, if there was a wanted subject that would come through the village, it would throw an alert, something that we don't have. But point being, using, you know, this week's unfortunate incident, you know, at Pizza Hut, us going to have to go to all these different businesses around to get the necessary footage would have been solved immediately. And it was this was 100% necessary for camera footage for identification purposes. So we've had other situations where we had the two individuals, for example, over the winter, where we actually had the two vehicles that came off of Mitchell shooting each other, and the one car crashed into St. John Cemetery. We couldn't identify the other car, and nobody would talk. So point being, we need this. We need to make this investment, so that it depends on which direction we go. And Safety Chair, you know, Kurt Brickweg was there as well in one of our meetings, and there's a different approach. One, you actually pay an annual fee every year for the X number of cameras you have. The other idea is whether you make the initial investment and actually purchase everything. We have to look at it from a couple different approach, but this is needed and we have to do it. So I wanted to just touch up on that.
Mr. President.
Mr. Bob Culbertson.
So Jonathan, you were saying, or Mr. Paul was saying a license plate reader. You're saying facial recognitions. I thought, because you said if there's a wanted suspect, they'd be able to identify them.
Mr. President.
Mayor.
I don't believe I said that, but what I was saying is a license plate reader basically would throw an alert based on that vehicle, so the plate that it would read. So it's not going to have facial recognition. So, but what it does is that if there is a stolen vehicle, if there's a wanted individual based on a license plate, whatever, yeah, obviously you know that plates could be switched. But the point is that what happens is that the license plate reader and one of the particular companies itself, Flock Safety, it will also store information relative to not just the plates, but, you know, potential make and model, might focus on a bumper sticker, but so there could be actual key features of a vehicle that could be stored. So if they did a search, that they could bring that up and say that, you know, a green Chevy Malibu passed through, you know, the village at such and such time. One thing that we're finding, though, as well, is that there are also certain municipalities, so especially with Flock Safety, and I'm not saying that I'm just for that, but point being is that you actually could log into their system too. So you would be able to find out where that car went next. So, I mean, this is really kind of the policing of the future type of a situation. It's necessary. The cameras are obviously very useful. So it's not all about just picking up individuals, which some of the cameras are. The whole idea is to not focus and make all of them, you know, LPRs. I mean, that's not the goal. We need actual camera footage to be able to you know, substantiate cases and actual find wanted subjects that commit crimes in our village. So but we can't just sporadically and randomly place the cameras. There has to be an assessment done as to where we're trying to get necessary coverage, and then we'll get our bid. But I don't think that we should just put one or two there. We need to have someone come in and say, this is what you need. Here's the complete package. We're all in.
Mr. President? With that being said, Mayor, you said you can't randomly place cameras. What about our parks? I know you named Ross Park, but I know at one point, like when the old police station was here, they could see like Vine Street Park. Will the cameras, especially since we've invested in all of our parks, and I don't want vandalism and stuff like that happening, would the parks be covered with these cameras?
Mr. President,
Mr. Paul.
both parks are covered now completely.
What about the small parks?
Franklin, Greenlee, and Tennis Lane and Lower Ross is covered. Tennis Lane are not covered. Tennis Lane I may be able to look at, but Greenlee and Burtis and Chalet and Franklin are not covered.
Mr. President, and also because, and again, most of these are IP-based cameras, so, I mean, there's a possibility that something could be done, but basically the police department right now currently has access to those as well, the cameras, and they are able to monitor. Doesn't mean there's always someone right there, but it's not all about having someone necessarily being able to watch the screen and watch for a violation on, from 20, 30 different angles. But what works out well is the technology that is available is that if there is a report of let's just use shooting just because of the most recent situation, but the officer can actually get footage in real time as reported. It's not all about going back and saying, it's not just reviewing, yes, it is at times, but you could literally come across a situation where our officers would be able to see immediately what would be happening. So, I mean, that's about as good as you could possibly get.
Mr. President? I just want to add to what the mayor's saying. I do believe that I think Amber Alert is tied into that reader as well. So if a vehicle is coming through St. Bernard and there's an Amber Alert, that's also something that would be notified to our department as well.
Mr. President,
Ms. Brickwick.
would it be possible, as you're going for bids, to possibly see if the other parks could have them and what the additional cost would be?
Mr. President?
Oh.
Yes, all three systems that I have looked at too, and all the rest of us looked at Flock, they are expandable.
To the other parks?
So you can add on anywhere you want.
Okay.
The other thing is that they're shareable. All three cameras that I have spoken to share with other communities. So if we get an alert that this car has passed through and it makes it to Reading will get an alert, we'll know which way they're traveling. So it's all interchangeable. And the one company actually goes all the way out to California. So if that car hits California, they know it's there to alert us that that's where they're at.
All right. Do I have a motion to place resolution number 2 on the table then?
Mr. President,
Mr. Ray Culbertson.
I make a motion, we put resolution number 2 on the table for the next council meeting.
I'll second that, Mr. President.
Motion by Mr. Ray Culbertson, seconded by Ms. Hausfeld to put resolution 2 on the table. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. All right. Tax Administrator, Ms. Helms.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll try to keep this short. All right, tax collections for April of this year are $1,263,861. This April, we're up about a little over, almost 3.5% from last April. Delinquent tax collected with capital recovery was $1,708 and change. Delinquent tax collected through the Ohio Attorney General's office was $32,894. Taxes paid through the e-file portal were $43,248. 392 taxpayers finalized their 2022 tax return using our electronic e-file system. The numbers for January through March of 2023 have been adjusted to reflect some additional e-file payments that I needed to add in. I'm still auditing, Sharon and I are still auditing the 2022 tax returns. Please be patient with us. It might be several more weeks until those are completed. I just wanted to say, I know we asked for a lot of appropriations tonight, but the revenues in the tax office are really strong this year, and I do believe we're on course to hit, just from the tax office alone, $15 million, which is the highest. I've been here 14 years. It's the highest I've ever seen our tax revenues. Is there any questions on any of the items that we brought up with the tax office? All right. I'm trying. I'm trying. So that concludes my report.
Thank you. All right, we'll move to reports of standing committees. Safety, Mr. Brickwick.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tonight I have the March report for the fire department. Fire incidents, we had 6 structure, this is the month of March, 6 structure fires. There were 3 other fires, no vehicle fires, 9 auto accidents, 3 hazmat incidents, 14 service calls, 13 fire alarms, 1 CO alarm, 17 EMS assist, for a total of 66 incidents. As far as mutual aid goes, mutual aid given for Norwood, we had 7. Elmwood Place, 8. Lockland, 1. Woodlawn, 1. Springfield Township, 1. Mutual aid received 2 from Norwood, 2 from Reading, 2 from Lockland, 1 from Cincinnati, 1 from Springfield Township, 1 from Deer Park, Silverton, and 1 from North College Hill. And the St. Bernard Fire Department has switched to a new EMS software vendor, Metro PCR, and is in the process of switching over to a new fire software vendor, which will be ESO, which bought our current vendor, which is Firehouse Software. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Service, Ms. Hausfeld.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Public Improvements, Mr. Bob Culbertson.
Thank you, Mr. President. CIC will meet Tuesday, the 23rd, in council chambers at 6 PM. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Marketing, Mr. Ray Culbertson.
Thanks, Mr. President. There will be another round of summer/fall sports signups at the Aquatic Center on Saturday, May 20th, from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Please stop by to sign up for summer swim lessons, fall say soccer, and lollipop soccer. Swim lessons are $20, all ages. Say soccer is $40 for residents, $60 for non-residents, and that's ages 6 to 13. Lollipop soccer is $20 for ages 3 to 5. On May 20th, we will also offer pre-sale summer passes to the Aquatic Center. The Aquatic Center will be open 7 days a week, starting on Saturday, May 27th, and the hours of operation will be 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Pass prices are as follows. An adult pass, 18 and over, is $50. A youth pass, 10 to 17 years of age, is $30. A child pass, 3 to 9 years of age, is $15. Children under 3 are free when accompanied by a paying adult. A family pass is $150. These prices are for residents only. A corporate-sponsored pass for non-residents is $200 for a family and $80 for a single pass. Also, St. Bernard will be hosting a fresh market on Sunday, May 21st, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. This event will take place at the lower level parking lot behind City Hall. Please make plans to stop by and support the vendors. A special thanks goes out to Layla Kiner for organizing and running this event. And I, too, would like to congratulate Cameron Young on his appointment to the fire department. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Business and Industry, Mr. Schultmeyer.
No report.
Thank you. This time, is there anyone in the audience wishing to address council this evening? All right, if not, what is council's pleasure on the absent members?
Mr. President,
Mr. Ray Culbertson,
I make a motion we excuse the two absent members.
I'll second that.
a motion eventually by Mr. Ray Culbertson, second by Ms. Hausfeld, to excuse the absent members. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? So ordered. Then I show one resolution for the solid waste management update and 3 ordinances, additional appropriation, ordinance for the raises, and the codified ordinance update. This time I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. President,
Mr. Ray Culbertson.
I make a motion we adjourn.
I'll second that, Mr. President.
Motion by Mr. Ray Culbertson, second by Ms. Hausfeld to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.